Welcome to AI GovCast. I'm your host, Ross-John Fortuné. Today, I'm talking with Matthew Graviss, the State Department's Chief Data and Artificial Intelligence Officer. He and I discuss his role as CAIO and how AI is an essential part of the State Department's mission. We also talk about how state uses AI to make diplomats' jobs easier and the importance of championing responsible AI use in global AI norms.
This episode is brought to you by Maximus. At Maximus, we are focused on driving continuous innovation to deliver impactful outcomes for our customers and the people they serve. Integrating experience and domain expertise with AI-enabled technologies, our solutions enhance efficiencies, reduce costs, and empower data-driven decision-making. With Maximus, agencies achieve resilient operations that can adapt, scale, and evolve to meet their changing customer and mission needs. We are dedicated to building a smarter, more efficient future that moves people, technology, and government forward. Learn more at maximus.com/federal.
Joining me now is Matthew Graviss, Chief Data Officer and Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at the State Department. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, Ross. Great to be with you today.
You've had a few years in this role, this Chief AI Officer role at State, but the focus on AI at agencies is kind of supercharged in the last few years. So how have you moved State's culture being more AI positive, and how have you brought AI into serving the department's overall mission?
Yeah, I joined December of 2020 as a civil servant, right? And so I'm coming up on 4 years. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years at the State Department. I carry a few hats. A couple of them you mentioned: Chief Data Officer, Chief AI Officer. I also lead the Center for Analytics within the State Department, which I think is really important that folks that are in Chief Data Officer roles, folks that are in Chief AI Officer roles have like an implementation capability that goes along with them, the ability to innovate and solve problems along the way, which is ultimately what we're about at the Center for Analytics. So that's really important to me. In terms of culture, we have recognized since we stood up the Center for Analytics several years ago that culture is everything. We have a culture communication and training division within the Center for Analytics that is laser focused on both upskilling the existing workforce, bringing extra skills to each of our foreign service officers and our civil servants, and onboarding new data and AI talent. There's been a huge interest and wave that I've experienced since being here of people who are on the outside of government or on the outside of the State Department who want to bring their data and AI skills to diplomacy and really shape foreign policy through deriving insights. And so it's been really exciting to see. One of our major programs is hiring Bureau Chief Data Officers in each of our bureaus within the State Department. It's not something that we started right when I got there. We had to get some momentum, build some political capital, and start driving it, and then really engage senior leaders across the department on the value that Chief Data, Chief AI Officer can bring at a bureau level. Ultimately, Ross, a lot of the decisions, a lot of the policy making is happening at those assistant secretary roles within each of these bureaus. And so having a data and AI leader that sits alongside them to strengthen our decision making is really impactful in the long run. So I think we're up to about 17 chief data officers across the department. So we're really excited about that. And of course, we're doing a lot overseas that I'm happy to jump into. One thing that we can't forget is we are here to service. We are here at headquarters of the State Department to really service those foreign service officers who are overseas that are engaging diplomatically in a bilateral and multilateral fashion day in and day out. So it's our job to bring these tools and capabilities to bear and shape the culture toward evidence-based decision-making.
Well, you set me up well. I mean, obviously you work with this huge footprint worldwide, everywhere. How do you wrangle all these different people that you mentioned to have both a consistent set of policies and standards to make sure nothing's falling through the cracks, as well as making sure that people have autonomy that their office uses AI and brings forth data well, without being too boxed in, I guess I would say, by bureaucracy and government and all the stuff that people always complain about?
So the way I think about it is really trying to solve people's problems at the end of the day. I'm a systems engineer by background. I tend to look at things from a systems perspective. So seeing the department as a system, seeing the policy making process as a system. And that comes with inputs and outputs and really trying to ultimately solve problems for people. That's what we're here to do. I don't get out the data management training manual and try to roll things out one thing at a time. At the State Department, we're very purposeful in trying to solve problems. And as we inevitably jump in to tackle people's challenges by bringing data and AI to them, there are policy elements that come up, and we craft policy and shape policy to ensure the guardrails around those things. It's important to remember that the mission of the State Department is about representing U.S. interests by shaping foreign policy and through building alliances across the world. Our diplomats do a lot of writing, a lot of talking, and a lot of reading. And so the way we put that is words are our currency. Words are the currency of the State Department, unstructured text, when it comes to AI. So I haven't seen, in my career, having worked in multiple agencies, I haven't seen a tool like generative AI meet a mission like diplomacy in my career. It's a really, really incredible opportunity to both bring some efficiency for employees, to help them save some time, and to strengthen our decision making.
AI brings some risks. I know that's always some concern about new technology, emerging technology. Are there particular risks that you're worried about as you are bringing AI into the mission?
100%. AI is described as a double-edged sword in a lot oftentimes, right? So we believe that it is really important to identify and manage and monitor risks and reduce the risk profile of the technology we incorporate into our diplomatic mission. We do that through a number of different ways. So one of the things that's important that we established is a responsible AI official, and she sits within the Center for Analytics, and she has no responsibility to hit deadlines in terms of new innovative solutions and technology. Her job is to really focus on the policy apparatus, the guardrails, and the way to ensure that we implement and bring technology to diplomats safely and securely and responsibly. She does that through leading an AI steering committee at the department, which has cybersecurity and our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and our Office of Civil Rights and legal. And so imagine a room with a table and all the folks that are around it that are necessary to really make sure we're doing this the right way, are making the decisions on what policies we're going to drive and what technology we're going to implement. She also has an independent verification and validation team that conducts bias testing on AI tools and things like that. So we've given her the tools and technology to do it. I'll also point out she's both a lawyer and a PhD. So she's got like a killer background. She happens to have done foreign policy stuff. So this trifecta of talent that she can bring to bear to that position. And so we've taken it very seriously. Now, I'll point out, if you take a step back, AI at the State Department, perhaps unique to the State Department in comparison to other agencies. We have two roles within the State Department when it comes to AI. One is what I'm responsible for, which is leveling up the use of AI in a smart, responsible way to bring about efficiency and effectiveness to decision making. The other is actually shaping the global norms and the ecosystem of AI diplomatically across the world. And Ambassador Nathaniel Fick is an incredible leader and is doing that. The reason I bring that up is because we believe that we're better positioned when our diplomats can engage on these technologies while having actually used them. And so we really want to promote the use of this kind of technology. We're wanting to move fast to deliver this kind of technology to our diplomats that will in turn enable better diplomatic outcomes when it comes to AI. So that's really, really important to us.
I saw Ambassador Fick in San Francisco at RSA in the spring, and he did really present well about this notion of making the U.S. a global leader in AI ethics and responsible use and things like that. I know I reference with in my regular life the notion that the internet speaks American because of the way that the U.S. has kind of steered the way people talk online. I know this is a jostling thing. In the great power competition is the notion of how to make AI responsible and the norms being a certain way that support U.S. interests and generally just sort of global human interests, I would say. That's a big part of the digital diplomacy plan at State Department. So how is AI a part of that? And particularly, how is it a part of the digital diplomacy plan in making the U.S. the global leader in ethical AI use?
So with Ambassador Fick being responsible for that area, I won't go too far into it. I'll leave it to him to kind of describe what the U.S. position is on global artificial intelligence. What I can tell you is I just came back from New York in the UN General Assembly. This week is called High Level Week. This is the Super Bowl of diplomacy, if you will. Leaders from around the world convene in New York to really drive a number of key issues. And emerging technology is certainly one of those. Yesterday, the Secretary of State hosted an event with other leaders from various countries and CEOs from some of our major technology companies, in particular AI companies. And to a person, they all announced broader commitments to ensuring that nobody's left behind when it comes to an AI-enabled world, and really focused on equity when it comes to artificial intelligence. And so that's a cornerstone of our policy. Again, my focus is really on how do we make sure that our diplomats get smarter on the use of this technology by giving them these kind of tools, so that when they engage diplomatically, they're more familiar with this kind of technology. The Secretary of State at the end of June hosted an AI event really on applying AI to diplomacy rather than AI diplomacy in and of itself. And the theme that he brought to bear was just get started. Just get started. We got to get comfortable using this technology. It's already all around us, right, Ross? It's around us in every other facet of our daily lives, and so why wouldn't we ultimately have it at work? And so making sure that we have the right training programs, then we have the right technology in place to enable that kind of performance on the diplomatic stage is really important to me.
Let's talk about that. How diplomats can use AI and use all the tools available to them, because data, AI, and analytics are the three things that you have a pretty big role in. What's the interplay there between AI, the data teams, the analytics, and the people on the ground?
Quite a bit, actually. I think, so first let me say, we've really pushed over the last few years to bring data talent into the decision-making process. The climate summit COP that happens every year, COP 27, COP 28, et cetera. The U.S. delegation for that has included a data scientist who can really help negotiators in real time revise models and support the negotiating process. And that's a really strong indicator of how much the secretary and other leaders within the State Department value the use of data in diplomacy. We call that data at the moment of diplomacy, really having those tools during negotiations and stuff. And we have a number of successes in that area, and we want to do more of that. We also want to upskill every diplomat that we have within the workforce and bring technology to bear. So a couple of examples that we've focused on using generative AI in particular. One is every mission around the world, right? 270 plus missions around the world has to produce a human rights, a trafficking in person, and international religious freedom report. They spend over 150,000 hours a year on these reports. And the reports are foundational to a lot of organizations that are focused in those mission areas. The department packages those up and then publishes them annually. So everybody has access to them. Really, really important reports. And important to note that we're not using generative AI to draft the reports. What we did was actually build a research assistant, because many folks in the public wouldn't know this, but the way the report is produced is folks on the ground at each mission who understand the local politics, the local dynamics, the local community, and are monitoring the news and engaging, and can document a lot of that information as part of their research process and producing these annual reports. And so a lot of times the way they currently do that is they either have a spreadsheet or they have a manila envelope that they're writing notes and then putting stuff in. And oftentimes, Ross, because of the transition of foreign service officers, somebody will be responsible for the research, and then somebody else has to be responsible for writing the annual report, which can be challenging. And so we use generative AI to build a research assistant tool where the researcher can enter a URL, attach a document, send themselves an email. And when that information gets ingested into our tool, it's automatically translated into English. It's automatically summarized, and it's automatically tagged to particular sections of these very structured reports, so that instead of looking at 150 pieces of research material, and you as a journalist would appreciate this very much, instead of looking at it and then for each section, you're going through all of it and writing your section, and then the next section, you're looking through all of it again. Imagine a comment bubble that says, these are the three pieces of research material for you for this section to produce. That's where we are. We deployed it last year, and we expect to save about 30,000 hours a year doing that. So that's the kind of thing where we can bring efficiency to diplomacy. We have used the tagline, more face-to-face time, less face-to-screen time. We want our folks around the world engaging locally, getting out of the embassy and going and speaking with their counterparts locally. And so anything we can do to get some of the basic work off of their plates, we're going to do it. Another example, something we're really proud about, is we're the first agency to launch a department-wide generative AI chatbot at a sensitive but unclassified level. We did that in August after a ton of testing, and we're seeing a lot of interest and gains in using generative AI because, as I said, words are our currency, and so the ability to help people translate, the ability to help people draft, to synthesize information from a lot of vast and varied sources is core to what we do. So we're excited to do that. It's not a product, it's a program. We got to keep building, keep adding more stuff into it, and we'll see the adoption rise. We have about 10,000 folks that are on the platform now, and we're continuing to see that number climb, excitingly so.
How has it been getting people on it and training and getting people comfortable with it? Because sometimes those things can be a little challenging.
So our philosophy when we started was we're not going to build the perfect solution that solves all problems right away. So one of the first things that we did was we put out policy around how do you use the publicly available tools for public use cases. What a novel idea, right? Every mission around the world has media summarization responsibilities. They're spending a few hours every single morning describing for the ambassador what goes on, what goes on over the course of 24 hours in a particular location. And so that's all public data, right? And they have their trusted sources of media. And so the ability to use generative AI to summarize that for them is a game changer. So we started our cultural shift process, if you will, before we released any internal technology. That actually bought us enough time to do the research assistant project, to roll out the generative AI chatbot. The users have been involved, the employees have been involved throughout the process. So if you take the chatbot, for example, we call it State Chat. So if you look at State Chat, we started off with 100 users in the spring, people that volunteered. And we slowly started to grow that. And we would put out simple polls, like prioritize the next features. And so they started choosing what we were working on. And the more we did that, the more we could, they would share that, hey, we're listening to the field and we're adding new capabilities on an every couple of weeks basis. And more people organically started to get on there. Having the secretary keynote an event on AI in June, talking about just get started doesn't hurt. That's for sure. When you have the top cover like the secretary and Deputy Secretary Verma have provided, you can move fast and people are willing to give it a shot. So I think those are the two things: top cover and then working back to get user feedback, user involvement in the design and the development process. And we're far from over. We're going to keep delivering capabilities.
I do want to touch on that just a little bit to say that I know Secretary of State Blinken has been out there a lot on the AI front. I know you did an event with him earlier this year about it. Like I said, at RSA, when he talked about he was at RSA talking about the digital diplomacy plan, AI was part of that. What value does, having this vocal leadership on the AI front, how does that help you do your job?
It's everything. It's absolutely everything. And now, this is my second tour being a chief data officer. I was the chief data officer at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services within DHS. And when I first started that job, I went and met with several chief data officers. And one of them said to me, here's what I said to the head of my agency. Are you willing to spend 4 hours a year modernizing the way we do business? And it's hard for even the most busy leaders in the country to say no to that. And really, that's what we're talking about is once a quarter, spend an hour on this kind of technology, this internal operations type of work. And I will also point out that the Secretary of State, having been in the foreign policy space for a long time, really committed on day one when he became the secretary to leave the agency, the institution itself, better than the way he found it. And so I think he's had even more of a focus on modernizing the Department of State. AI is a huge part of that. And so the top cover has been really important. I'll also say when people talk about resources, they always say like, I need more money, I need more people. Leadership attention is the resource that people don't talk enough about when it comes to government, when it comes to pushing the bureaucracy and driving fast. Leadership attention is really, really important. And it's amazing what happens in the lead up to leadership engagement on a particular topic. Both diplomatically, like UNGA, like the high level week this week, a lot of work went in and a lot of commitments were secured in the lead up to an event. The same thing is true in operationalizing technology within the department. The ability to marshal resources in advance of senior leader engagement has been one of the cornerstones of our success at the State Department.
Yeah, I imagine that's super duper helpful just because it models sort of what you're looking for. Before I let you go, is there anything we didn't cover that you think we should have?
I thank you so much for the opportunity to spend some time with you and to talk about what we're doing. What's really exciting to me is meeting talented people that want to join the State Department with data and AI skills. We've hired dozens upon dozens of data scientists over the last few years. We have chief data officers, 15, 16, 17 now across the department. We have a post-data program overseas. We actually have an announcement on the street right now for a chief data officer for the Global Health Security Bureau, and another one, if it's not coming out. If it's not already out, it probably will come out, as the Western Hemisphere Bureau Chief Data Officer. So if you're listening to Ross and I have this discussion and you're interested in bringing data and AI skills to a leadership role in the State Department, where you're part of the decision-making process when it comes to foreign policy by bringing evidence to the fold, don't hesitate to apply. We're looking for a diverse cohort of folks with all kinds of different talents to level up our performance within the State Department. So that is really my focus, and that's what really excites me, is seeing this talent come into the fold. So I'll leave you with that. I think that's the exciting part.
Yeah, people, I imagine, are everything in the diplomatic world. So you certainly want to have the right ones in there and the ones that are most engaged. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll be back next month with a brand new interview in our GovCIO Media and Research podcast feed. Until then, please subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks again for listening. I'm Ross John Fortuné. We'll see you next time.